The manner in which our finances are arranged is that the chairman presents a budget. As you've heard, this is always a balanced budget. That is, that we would come through breaking even or with about tuppence halfpenny left over to celebrate with at the end of the year. Do you want to ask it now, Robert? It's going to be a long speech. What?
Well, it has bearing on your speech.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to ask the committee a rhetorical question as to whether they feel that this meeting continues in the way that it is continuing. It's a continuation of a process of willful obscurity and prevarication, which they've been drawn into, perhaps unwittingly, and that the nature of this meeting should be forced to change from matters of parochial procedure towards a much higher level of discussion.
I think that was...
So you won't get the answer on the finances.
Can I give you the short answer? On two occasions... On two occasions during the year, the balance sheet of the Architectural Association is published as required by the Companies Act, and during the autumn term of the year, the chairman prepares a report to the school community, which is an insert in the events list, which gives you a summary of the current year's budget in comparison to previous years, and gives such information of fees, fee-paying students, students which are grant-aided, and the sources of those different grants. The other working document, which is in use on a day-to-day basis, is the budget itself. It's the tradition, but nobody ever tells you, that if you wish to inspect the budget, it's available either in the Secretary's office or the Accounts Department.
When was the last financial statement?
There was none made this autumn. There was one the year before. There was one the year before its perspective for the year. There were a few other things to be said about the
Sandra's got one there. I don't know the year of it.
1st of November. Yeah, that's for...
Yes, that's the type of reporting that's available to you generally. Any further questions? Right. Are there any further questions on the reports? No, there are no further questions on the reports. If we move on to the next item on the agenda, the discussion of the current situation and the response of the school community to the actions reported. We have received, or the school community has received, a number of letters from various sources, which it was thought you might be interested to hear the contents of. I think, Sandra, you have these letters.
I have a letter here which I've been asked to read out to you on behalf of former members of the school community. I'll read the letter and then I'll read to you the names of the signatories. This is an open letter to the AA Council. We were concerned to learn, BD May the 18th, that the Council has issued the Chairman with an ultimatum regarding the length of his new contract. We understand that the school community has indicated that it wishes the Council to reappoint the Chairman and to do so for a period of 5 years. The Council has apparently not persuaded the school community that a 3-year, as opposed to the normal 5-year period, would be in the best interests of the school. And the Council's view, as quoted in BD, that it would be imprudent to automatically extend the Chairman's contract beyond 3 years, is not shared by the school community. Our sole concern is that the AA should continue to flourish. After the doubts and confusions of the late 60s, the AA has enjoyed a period of stability, during which its energies have been focused on the pursuit of architectural excellence, and its standing as a school of international repute has been firmly established. This tradition must be protected and maintained. The essentially independent character of the AA, which has marked it since its origins as a student-inspired institution, re-articulated itself in the early 70s and has been embodied in the schedules attached to the Chairman's contract since that date. We believe that an understanding of the balance of relationships between the school, the Chairman and the Council, established at that time, is an essential prerequisite to finding a way out of the current impasse. The fundamental principles are as follows. 1. The council appoints, but the school elects the chairman. 2. The school can terminate the chairman's appointment, the chairman having lost the confidence of the school. 3. The chairman shall at all times be sensitive and sympathetic to the educational aspirations of the school. These clauses embody the desire of the school to direct itself through someone who coordinates all activities and needs, but over whom they retain influence at all times. It is true to say that the school sees itself as the generator of the continuing tradition of the AA and of its prestige past and present, and that this self-awareness and sense of responsibility plays a vital part in the school's success. The modus vivendi established in the 1971 contract has served the school well. The school made plain that it did not wish to be coerced, but has always treated its locus in these matters in a responsible manner. All subsequent modifications to the chairman's contract have been arrived at as a result of discussions and negotiations between the parties concerned. We would urge the Council to do all in its power to ensure that the tradition of running the school on this basis is maintained. And the following former members of the school community have signed this letter: John Andrews, Gordon Benson, Doug Branson, Peter Carl, Nigel Coates, Eldred Evans, Alan Forsyth, Stephen Gage, Pedro Geddes, Zaha Hadid, Christine Hawley, Trevor Horn, Jan Kaplicki, Ben Kern, Rem Koolhaas, Daniel Liebeskind, Izzy Metzstein, Wolf Pricks, Ian Ritchie, Tim Ronalds, David Shaloff, Alan Stanton, Bernard Schumi, Dalibor Vaisley, Peter Wilson, Ilya Zengelis. Thank you.
Were there other letters that you... Oh, Peter, can you...
I have a letter from Australia. It's addressed to the school community, care of JWG, the Architectural Association. Dear school community, although distant from the current furore, we would like to add our support to the statements issued by the Joint Advisory Working Group concerning the Chairman's contract and tenure. As former unit masters of the school and long-standing members of the association, we appreciate the questioning goals and directions that derive from periodic review of the Chairman's contract. We also support the principle that the tenure of all academic staff should be dependent on merit and achievement. However, we believe that debate on these occasions within the AA can become curiously myopic and parochial. In a wider perspective, the school under Alvin's stewardship has established and maintained respect internationally for the excellence of its teaching programs, the quality of its graduates, and the contribution to the culture of architecture of its publications and exhibitions. The work of the school is seen to be challenging and provocative, and provides the measure by which many more adventurous schools around the globe judge themselves. Given this extraordinary and sustained achievement, we feel that it is ill-judged and demeaning of the Council to suggest a curtailment of contract, or indeed to issue an ultimatum. As the JAWG statement correctly points out, 3 years is insufficient to establish and maintain a coherent educational framework, and in virtually all other schools of architecture would be a minimum period of tenure offered to junior staff. We strongly urge the Council to moderate its position in line with the wishes of the school community and confirm the offer of a contract for a further 5-year term. With kind regards to our former students and colleagues, yours sincerely, Britt Anderson and Mick Kenninger. They were teachers here in the intermediate school in first year, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Thank you.
And Peter Sabara's got a letter from Nigel Coates to read out.
Did you have a question, Andrew? Oh, okay. Can you speak loud?
2 months ago, a student friend of mine studying architecture at Florence College. She was then a key figure among
Could you come to the front? This is a letter from Nigel Coates. Ready to rise.
2 months ago, a student friend of mine studying architecture in Florence called. She was then a key figure amongst her peers who were occupying the schools all over Italy. The AA, she thought, could be a leading example of reform. Could I fax her the Constitution and the curriculum of the AA? The fact is that the AA itself is its constitution. The association was formed so that its members would be free to determine their education. This desire for freedom has been crucial throughout the AA's history, not least when it opted to remain independent rather than be absorbed into the state system of architectural education, nor when the school voted to remain open, countering a council edict to close it. In short, it has adapted to the circumstances of the time because of its self-monitoring structure, in its unit system, and in the fact that the chairman can only operate if supported by the school. The best I could do for the Florentines was to send a prospectus. It follows then that periodically the school enters a phase of upheaval. To be free to do so is essential to its survival. By now the issues are crystal clear. The council, frustrated by its inability to match its views of education and views of the profession, has challenged Elvin beyond what both staff and students know is in the best interest of the school. During the 70s, a 3-year contract may have worked. As a school has become increasingly international, its stability needs to increase. The 5-year term is appropriate for the reality of the school, as it now is and essential to its credibility. Anything less will not do, either for Elvin or his eventual successor. Of course, there are no free diplomas for guessing that the council really wants Elvin out, and that for them, the 3 years is a matter of shortening the time until the return match. The council has demonstrated that it is wildly out of touch. As I see it, there is only one course left open, and that is for you, the school community, to exercise its freedom and pass a vote of no confidence in the present council. Signed, Nigel Coates, 22nd of May, 1990.
I'm going to read a letter from Ron Heron, my father, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but was very keen that I read this to you. I shall be brief. The issue you are here to discuss is the period of Alvin's next contract. The majority of staff and students, I believe, support Alvin in his wish for, as previously, a 5-year contract. The council have offered a 3-year contract, which we have discovered in last week's building design is linked to the council's wish for him to retire at 65. I ask myself, is Alvin no longer eager, interested or able to run the school? The answer is emphatically no. If you talk to Alvin, he is full of plans for the school's future. I ask, is the student work no longer interesting or at a low ebb? Of course it isn't. The work is highly regarded throughout the architectural world and at its best is brilliant. I ask, has Alvin failed in his job? What other head of school anywhere devotes his whole life to the good interests of the students, and I might add the staff, and the cause of good architecture as he does, and has done for the AA for over 18 years? With his record and that of the school, it is insulting and stupid for the council to act as it has, and any other body would be thanking Alvin for what he has achieved and begging him to stay. I believe that they, the council, have lost the confidence of the school and should be asked to resign. I deplore the attitude of council and its obvious intent on destroying arguably the best school of architecture in the world. Signed, Ron Heron, May 1990.
I hope.
This is a letter from Peter Wilson dated the 21st of May, 1990, in response to the AA Council regarding the termination of Alvin Boyarsky's contract. Open letter to AA Council. As an AA member and longtime teacher at the school, I find the action taken by this council more than shocking. It is a disgrace to architecture. England is currently the laughingstock of the architectural world. The AA, that is to say Alvin Boyarsky, is almost the only island of integrity and must at all costs continue to so function. Through its teaching, exhibitions, and publications policy, the AA is now the most respected architectural institution in the world. That your council misrepresent the school and members and damage architectural culture to such an extent is inexcusable. Unless Alvin Boyarsky is immediately offered a five-year contract, I most certainly have no confidence in this council. Yours sincerely, Peter Wilson.
Are there any further formal contributions to that nature? No. Well, we should move on to our discussion. I see us having two areas which we might care to explore. The one is takes a lot of feeding, does it?
Where are the fishes?
Was she? Jolly good. Is she sending out sandwiches? Lost me now. We may care to bring the two areas together. We have heard recounted the procedures and so forth of the last weeks and months, and we might examine whether our representatives and all others involved in these procedures have acted responsibly and in our best interests. And we might find that they have, or we might decide that they have not. And it might be, if we find that they have not, we might care to remark with some degree of strength upon our dissatisfaction. But the crucial issue which we must get to is the present. And whatever we might feel about the past, the present is a reality. That it is, whatever it is, the 25th of May, Friday, 3:30 in the afternoon. We've been here now for over 2 hours. The reality of the situation is that the chairman of the school has received a confirmation from the council of the Architectural Association that his contract will end on the 15th of September next. And to all intents and purposes, the school community has had its chairman's tenure terminated for whatever reasons, but the school community is now without a chairman. And we have to address that problem, whatever else we might address, of how we should proceed in the future. Whether we request the revision of the existing situation or whether we participate in the process of appointment of a new chairman, whatever direction might be found in the future, we have to address ourselves to that today. It is not something we can avoid, and we have to make some firm recommendations to the council about our views on how we would wish them to proceed and what our participation would be in that process. If I could first ask for you to comment on the historical aspect, but as I'm trying to emphasize, it is vital that before everybody drifts out from the back of the room, we do get to this question of how to proceed for the future, rather than the first question which we might address, which is how to respond to the past. Raoul.
I would like to Martin answer the question, but actually I'd like to take up Robert's chance. Do I need to start?
Yes, could you?
And although I will be very brief, but I need to start with a slight comment on historical procedures, because I think there was a factual discrepancy in the President's report, or something was left out, which I think is symptomatic, and about the way that the JOG, which is by now is defunct, has had to react. And I'll give you two symptoms, and then I want to really put that to rest. The one is that something he left out is that at a certain point, this is about February, the meetings broke down, I literally say broke down, because although they had requested, the council had requested from the staff and students to actually voice their opinion on the current situation and the terms of the chairman contract, and we actually did express these opinions, including those of a 5-year contract, we discovered suddenly that they actually had bypassed the JOG group and actually started to offer a contract to the current chairman. And if the president would be here, I would challenge him actually to divulge the details of that offer, because that put us, I mean the members of JOG, us in total shock, because it did not reflect the representative recommendations. I guess he's not taking up the challenge. It's included, and I may well say that, it included, among others, 2 options, and one was the extension of the contract for 1 more year to the chairman, or for 3 more years, with then a chain of other things, which I guess we have somewhere written down if you would want the details. And this was actually a breakdown, and from there on it has not been, I mean, we actually had lost confidence we had already lost confidence in their intentions of listening to the voice of the staff and the students. Now, I want to go back for one moment to the initial statement of the council representatives. They actually started the first meeting of the JOG working group by stating that currently the school was at a low. The student work was not good. The staff members were not distinctive. And there was not much happening at the school. Now, we went through several meetings then, trying to ask them, well, what do you think is wrong, and what do you think the school should be like? And as to date, we've never really had a kind of a model, a kind of an image of what they think this future that they describe should be like. And I would like to open the discussion, and on this point, I really I feel absolved from my function as a representative, and I speak as an individual staff member, which I didn't introduce myself, I think. I've been schoten in the diploma school. And I would like to offer, and I'm not directly answering Dennis's answer, I would like to offer you a model, simply to start a discussion, and also to them as an answer to their accusations. The role and definition of architecture within society reflects profound and fast-moving changes in contemporary culture. This changing role and definition of architecture directly affects the education of an architect. A healthy school of architecture attempts to deal with possible ways in which architecture will play a part in culture and offer possible models for this part. The concept of change is embodied in this attempt to speculate and forward alternative models, and so directly question and challenge existing architecture and existing models of architecture and current practice of building. The education of an architect therefore both equips to place him or herself within a broader context of architectural endeavor and inquiry, and also to question the very means and aims of architecture. If this is corrupted or restricted, the school becomes a mere institution for the acquisition of a trade and loses the possibility of being an academy or a place which has a stimulating and provoking role to play within the process of current cultural changes. And I sincerely believe that the school is healthy and is working on provocative models. Thank you.
Aggravating assumption of the council is that we would want the school to continue at any cost. I think that's not the case. I think we should seriously consider the option that the school must close if it cannot continue. I consider it would be a worse situation if the school was to continue in a form that was negative and circumscribed by exactly the parochial, pragmatic and political forces that are being suggested. And those are exactly the political, pragmatic and cultural forces the school is set up to challenge and attack.
Sorry.
While I accept that this is probably a very good discussion to have, what's going to happen now, I think, is that a lot of us are going to make statements and we're all going to clap to them because we don't have another side of the view here. There are no other council members apart from myself, and I'm actually standing as a student, not as a council member. So I will not answer or opinionate upon what my fellow council members think. I mean, what is going to happen here is it's a political rally which shouldn't happen. No, it shouldn't happen because there is no other point of view. The council weren't invited to be here originally. The meeting. Well, I mean, I can't speak as a council member. I'm speaking as a student, and as a student, when this meeting was called last week, it was called by the student and staff representatives without consultation with the council.
Excuse me, as the chairman of the meeting, I must bring to your attention the fact that any five, am I correct in the number? 5 members of the school can call a meeting of the school community at any time when they feel aggrieved or concerned about any activity that may be occurring within the school. They are under no obligation to consult with anybody else when they want to call such a meeting. It is perhaps polite that they might consult with people, it's polite that they might invite people, but they are by no means under any obligation to do anything of that sort. Any further questions or comments? John?
Yes, sorry, I mean, as council aren't here to debate, it seems to me that we have to send them a clear message. What concerns me is the room for manoeuvre. The questions that came from myself about the extent to which council were prepared to debate did seem to be very narrow. We were being encouraged to act responsibly, but that sounded to me like a threat. I don't respond very well to having a gun held to my head. They, I think, are suggesting that if we pass a vote of no confidence, that might destroy the school. Council have lost the confidence of the school on numerous occasions in the past when they said there was no alternative financially to Imperial College and so on. We've been through this before. It obviously is a risk if we were to push this right to the edge of the council. But nevertheless, I think that what was being called as an indicator of council's attitude, rather than trying to persuade you or coerce you of this, may I just ask you to all think why council would threaten me like this? Why council would try to put it to you that to challenge their judgment is going to threaten the stability of the school? That's the question. My own opinion is very clear, that I think council themselves are rocking the boat. Council themselves are acting in a provocative manner. Council themselves are willfully ignoring the views of this community. Council themselves are offering provocative statements to Alvin and the press. It is my opinion it is they who are behaving irresponsibly, and the most responsible thing we can do as a community is either to point that out to them or make it clear that we want them to go.
Get rid of the council. I mean, you know, I'm against the council personally. I don't think they're very interesting bunch of people. But then, equally, you know, then the alternative to that is to actually sort of support the current situation, which I don't necessarily think that we should be doing. And everyone's standing up, people's reading letters from sort of all these sort of notable architects or something, and everyone's clapping it. I think it's a shame that there's no room for sort of conversation about the development of the school and the problems that it has, without sort of seeming to be, you know, council, students. You know, I don't feel that, unfortunately, that as a student, you know, the joint advisory thing doesn't represent my view, certainly, about what should happen within the school. And I don't think the school is a provocative kind of force in sort of in society, which it could be or something. But I think it should be, and I think that's an important sort of thing and conversation which no one's kind of talking about.
Yes, I'd like to support that, and I think that's what in every cloud is silver lining. That's just at the moment now where something quite exciting can happen. The situation we have at the moment, which still seems to be unclear, I mean, from what information I had before this meeting was that the council had removed the contract now in the story. From what Michael Foster was saying, he sort of, we could reoffer it to him if we all agreed to it. So, are they turning back on their ultimatum? Not clear. Now, what is our attitude to a body which is governing them and is not acting in a clear and decisive manner? If they want to get rid of Alvin, they should have stood up in November and said, get rid of Alvin, and then we could have discussed it. But no, everything's been little bits of information fed to us. So at the end of the day, you know, it's May, everyone's got their reviews, so, you know, it's...
But that's why
I'd like to second that. Sorry,
there are repeated fragments of evidence of council. Repeated fragments of evidence of council's intention to intervene in the educational structure of the school. I'd like to ask Poovan, and I don't know whether he'd be prepared to answer this, is he prepared to state whether he believes there to be this intention, whether there is, however formed or ill-formed, a hidden agenda which will be pursued by council if their new enthusiasm for acting without regard to the will of the school community is not resisted?
I will answer that. And I do not believe that there is any hidden agenda, because it would have been very hard for them to hide it from me around a table with 18 people where they've held open and frank discussions about the state of the school, and it would have been very contrived over 2 or 3 hours to keep it from me personally. There is no hidden agenda as far as I can see it, and also as far as I can see it, Council have no intention to get involved in the academic day-to-day running of the school, nor do they have any overall academic plan for the school in the next 3 years if the contract is presented against the chairman.
But I asked Michael Foster, sorry, can I just... No, I asked Michael Foster who he had in mind to take over as chairman, and he obviously has someone in mind, you know, I think. And if that person's going to become some kind of business manager of the school, you know, then that's, you know, that is the hidden agenda, and that is how they'll run the school and stuff, and that's the issue.
I would endorse that, Mr. Chairman. Oh, I'm sorry. I think Michael Foster told us. He said the seeds of a new organisation must be in place within this next 3 year contract. I think there's no question what they're trying to do.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, what kind of organisation that would be is anyone's guess. And I would say that it's up to us as a body to decide what we want in terms of for the benefit of the education in the school. Whatever happens, the financial problem is not going to go away. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the most interesting suggestions, the only positive thing I heard was, well, you know, why do we have to stay in what's going to become an expensive building? You know, if that's what's pressurising them, financial worries, etc., is it possible that the school, the community, can look at financial suggestions for ways of running the school, improving the finances in the future, and keeping what we have now, what we're happy with, the contract?
I could just perhaps comment on that as a matter of historical record, which this exercise was carried out in 1971-72. and we looked at various places from the sort of Sunlight Soap Factory down in Wapping to a Berkshire country house.
Yes.
And the capital investment required in order to convert the premises for our use made the move hardly worth the while. I mean, it would have, over the last 20 years, perhaps now we'd have been in a much better situation. But at the time, it was not viable at that time.
By quick answer, it seems the difference between the cost of the lease now, the lease being offered, and at the end of the year is exactly the figure that Alvin is being forced to call back each year.
Yeah.
Very true.
I was just going to say that Peter Building Workshop. I think we should be clear. I think we should be clear about motivation more than anything else. There were some times where it was difficult to discuss certain things in the Joint Advisory Working Group, but when it actually came to the crunchy bits, we had to really look at the AA from the point of view of a school of architecture rather than a business in the long term, in that when we actually look at what we're doing and why, we must be quite clear about what we're doing and not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And this is not just an emotive issue, this is something that we should all be quite clear about, that when we do make a decision on anything, we should be clear what we are retaining and what we are losing in that process.
Yeah, sorry, the Lceture Foundation. I was just wondering if anyone had heard from council exactly what their reasons for a 3-year contract are. I know, going back a bit, it might be that someone here knows something that they couldn't say earlier on. It's just that from what Michael Foster was saying, the financial advisor who is going to be appointed didn't have any say on this. And even if, my question is, if the auditors, say the AA's auditors have said we have got to have a 3-year contract and a 3-year clawback, if we go against that, is the school still a viable proposition? Can we actually go against this 3-year thing, or are we sort of stuck in it now?
They don't this is correct. Yeah, they don't actually. Yeah, the auditors does.
So is it just the council?
No,
the council has formed an opinion that offering a 3-year contract is their way of acting responsibly and their way of covering themselves, basically. But they've never given, and we've been completely unclear all along, why they determined that as a responsible action. What the difference is between a 3- and a 5-year contract. Nobody has been able to explain that clearly and convincing to any of us, or I think today to the school community meeting.
That question has been, I've been present at some of your meetings, and I've come up with every single one of them. And that same question's come up through various meetings over the last few months, and the same with the liability. Where does the 3-year figure come from? And then it's been asked, have the auditors given it? Have the banks given it? Is it a figure? Is it a real figure? Because I think your question is very valid. If the school is going to collapse, if it's not done in 3 years, then we have to look at it that way. But no one's actually said that. There's neither the auditors or the bank or the legal advice.
Well, that's right. Nobody has said that. I think we have to kind of push a little bit and look at this, because the council is not only offering not only offering Alvin an ultimatum here, but he's really offering the school an ultimatum. And I would wonder if they're acting fairly at all. They talk about proposing a fair contract to Alvin, but I think that the policy of making a contract where a chairman has to essentially turn over 200,000 profit per year in order to ensure that the school survives is grossly unfair, because in the council's own history of raising money, and perhaps in the foundation's history of raising money, they have thus far raised so far £400,000 in this foundation, of which only the interest is touchable. Their goal was, I believe, $1.5 million, or was it higher than that? 3 million. Right? Michael Foster talked about increasing the membership or doubling the membership as a way of increasing the amount of money that was going into the school. As I seem to remember, the membership amounts to about £40 per member. That, let's say it was a figure like £60. 70. Well, even at that, it would require 100 new members to fill in the amount of money that is paid by one student enrolled in the school. The amount of money that is spent in the school is basically spent to attract attention to the AA and attract students, not only worldwide attention amongst other architects, but amongst students, and that's its means of survival. I think what the council is doing is very, very clear. They've proposed a contract which is, at the most optimistic, bound to fail. And I think by knowing that it's bound to fail, they are placing a strict limit on the tenure of this particular chairman, and in fact are interfering gravely in the running of the school. I think the pressure that we put on the school, and the pressure that would be put on the school in cutting back as much money as what would have to be cut back, as much expenditure, would make the school feeble. It would make it improbable as a place for people to come to, and it would actually show very, very profoundly. And I think what would happen is at the end of this 3-year period, even if Alvin decided to accept the contract under some sort of encouragement, that it would not only be regarded as an economic failure, but as an academic failure, and they would have doubly the reason to discontinue his contract or not offer him another one. So that's the thing he's being presented with, and that's the thing we're being presented with. And I think we have to wholeheartedly reject that, because the school runs itself. It must operate responsibly, surely. It must try not to lose money, surely. But we mustn't try to completely destroy ourselves. And I think this is what would happen in this case. And personally, I feel that the council is flying in the face of the good of the school and actually acting against it for, I believe, to be personal reasons, because of this thing. Meetings happen in front of you. Yes, discussions happen in front of you as a member of council, but things appear in the press, mysteriously, fed to the press. And those aren't the discussions of the council. They're the discussions amongst few individuals on the council, their leads. And so individuals are acting on behalf of themselves. And this is what's happening in the school, and we must just block it effectively now.
Very shocking proposals that come from the council has been the way that they've consistently bitten into the academic freedom of the school, which has been established over the last 20 years. The first shocking thing really was their wish to install a financial controller or bursar who would not be within the control of the chairman of the school. And that would represent to the staff an immediate picture that the shape and form of the school would be controlled by somebody who wasn't a teacher or wasn't the chairman. And that, I think, represented a very great misunderstanding by the council of the nature of the school. The second thing that's very shocking is that they should present a 3-year contract at all, given that the length of contract has been negotiated very laboriously over a long period of time and been extended from 3 to 5. And I know there are financial problems, but I think that the misunderstanding in council that's apparent to me is of that effect on the academic freedom of the school. And the final thing that's very shocking is that Michael Foster should present today, or prior today, an ultimatum to the school, and say that, in fact, of course, out of a 5-year contract, if the nature of the contract weren't as it was, which is very shocking. I mean, this contract, I've learned through the discussions that we've had, has been negotiated very, very carefully. It seems to be a very sensitive mechanism to achieve the kind of academic freedom that we have here. And for the council to think that that's somehow just negotiable like that is very shocking. I find their presentation, really, it doesn't convince me. I think they're using their financial problems, which are very real, as a vehicle for some other. I do think there is an agenda in the mind of a number of council members, not the whole of the council. And I know that at the very first meetings, there were, Fred Scott enunciated a series of criticisms of the school, unsubstantiated, and then retracted them. And there is a feeling that some members of the council do have an idea that they want to change the school. It seems apparent to me. I find that shocking.
Here. Can I ask you to guide me as you're chairman the meeting? It seems to me that all the discussion that we've heard have centred around 2 points. And 2 very crude points, I'm afraid. One is whether we have confidence in the council to direct our affairs, and the other is whether we believe that a 5-year period of tenure is essential. as far as I can recall, every speaker has spoken in favour of 5 years. Nobody has spoken in favour of 3 years. There are inevitably amongst you people who can't actually see the difference set from being 2 years, and they would be quite happy with a 3-year contract as they would be with a 5-year contract. But is there anybody here who could speak to the point of a 3-year contract being appropriate in the circumstances?
I could speak very much against First-year uniform percent. I'd like to know what the advantages of 3 years.
That's why I'm asking the question. Somebody
I was just going to say I'd rather have a 3-year contract than a no-year contract.
I don't think anybody will disagree.
The ultimatum is being put forward by council.
Sorry, I'm just answering the question.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that ultimatum is being put forward by council.
Yes. Yes, well that obviously is also a question which we can ask ourselves formally during the course of this meeting. But I am interested to know, Mr. Chairman here, whether in terms that Bill Fraser expressed, if we're going to send a further message to council, we can't send them a message that says we prefer 5 years but we'll accept 3 years as opposed to no years. That's not the sort of message you have in mind, I think, So we must come to a resolution of what our feeling is. Oh, hands coming up. Yes.
I'll say, I think it's far more important to decide whether they've got confidence in the council than to decide whether it should be a 3 or 5 year contract. In fact, it doesn't matter, I think.
Yes.
What the council does is there's any connection between the financial deficit and the choice between a 3 or 5 year contract. And the two are not actually linked in any way at all. They're actually two very, very separate discussions. And I think we should all question in terms of why have they made that link? There's the one body of financial opinion that says we must do this, we must do it in 3 years, and therefore the chairman has that. And maybe there's another option to suggest another alternative, for instance, unless a separate board, the auditors have said this must happen in 3 years. But even if it doesn't happen in 3 years, there's absolutely no reason to say it has to be the chairman who sits in for 3 years. That's completely another issue.
I'll come back to you.
There may be a misconception about what is to happen over a span of 3 years. The auditors have not said that the deficit has to be recovered over 3 years. Earlier on it was said that we are principally a school of architecture, and that, nobody argues with that, but we are also a business. And I think the council members are concerned to ensure the survival of the business so that the school can continue. And in their reasoning, they can't see beyond 3 years. They can't see beyond the immediacy of the 3-year financial time span. That's, I suspect, why they fixed on 3 years, because in financial terms, they can't see 5 years. They can only see 3 years as an immediate financial time span.
Can you suggest on the front of the council why the chairman's contract of 3 years has any effect on the financial situation over those 3 years, and why a 5-year contract with the same concern over 3 years cannot be offered?
Why they can see 3 years and not 5 years?
I can't. If they, can I ask a lateral question, Edward? As I defined earlier, the council are all members of the school community. The council within the chairman's contract do not have the power to remove the chairman except for very grave reasons, like sort of stealing the money from the bank and all the rest of it. But the school community does have a method of ridding itself of an unwanted chairman through clause 7B1 or whatever it is. Has the council ever had it brought to their attention that should they after 3 years, say, or at any time, be unconvinced by the financial stability of the school, that they have recourse to this meeting in order to produce a vote of no confidence in the chairman, which would result in a demand for his immediate resignation?
I'm sure they're not unaware of that.
Have they thought of it, though?
Seems to me it hasn't been sufficiently emphasized that we depend upon credibility and repute and the involvement of the whole student body. Now, in this case, it does strike me that a 3-year proposal is idiotic. It's self-defeating. It is utterly self-defeating, the financial deficit. Unless a contract of appropriate tenure, for this is not the job of somebody teaching. It is the job of what council calls the chief executive, the chairman. They agree that our present chairman does an excellent job. They issue a 3-year contract. I do not see why. Because in the eyes of items for the financial people generated in my experience, this would be the road to disaster. And it does not allow sufficient time for this occupation to be successful. And it would not only, I think, upset all of us, most of us, but it would upset the bankers and those people responsible for issuing loans and things of this kind. And manifestly it does so worldwide.
Was the last 3-year contract that Alvin was offered, and the school was in chaos as a student at the time. And I mean, it was decided by council then that we shouldn't go through this every 3 years, and it should be done every 5 years. And just thinking logically, if the lease is coming up, if we are in bad financial situation, and if Alvin's contract all ends in 3 years, this place is going to be a disaster. I mean, I would have thought you'd try to phase them so that they don't all occur.
Would you like? Can you make a way up here? I can't hear you here. So. Sorry, we're saving on microphones today.
Seems to be one of the reasons why everyone is asking for a 5-year contract is due to the mistrust of the council and their intentions. In actual fact, even if it was a 5-year contract, this mistrust would continue. And I think there has to be some consideration of the Constitution to have a situation in which the future of the school and the future chairmen are more dependent on the views of the student rather than of the council. As it stands, if it was 5, 3, 2, 1, it's all the same. At the end of that period, we're basically at the mercy of the council who, if they wish, can propose only one option, and automatically that man becomes chairman, and that structure is undemocratic. And that, I think, is the flaw in the system, and that needs to be changed about everything. Because if that existed, it wouldn't matter if it was a 3-year contract. Because then, in 3 years, everyone can make a choice based on the students here whether Alvin should continue or not. But as it stands, we don't even have the choice.
Can I answer that point and give you all a bit of a beating around the ears at the same time? The Council of the Architectural Association is elected annually by a normal democratic voting process. People are nominated to council, people present statements and so on and so forth, and they're duly elected onto the council. I asked Edward earlier today to have a look at the voting figures for the last election to council, of which half the ordinary members of council were re-elected for their current term, which is a term of 2 years, incidentally. I can't remember the figures in detail, but only something slightly in excess of 400 people voted in that election, There are more than 400 people in the school community. Only 4, was it? How many members of staff? 4 members of staff and 20 students actually voted on that occasion. If you are dissatisfied with the council, then the remedy does lie here. It doesn't necessarily lie in constitutional reform. Constitutional reform would be nice, but because it would clarify the relationships between this, which is basically an unconstitutional body, and the constitutional body which we have to have by the rules of the Charity Commission and the Charities Act. But as I pointed out in my introductory remarks, the only inequality that remains in that formula is that staff members of the school are not, or anybody who's employed by the school, are not permitted to be members of the council. And that has actually proved to be a problem in the past. There was a council, and I won't go into the history of it, which was almost entirely consisted of students, and we had a hell of a mess that time. Peter.
I have this feeling that it feels like a time in the meeting when we should start to move toward motions to be issued by the meeting to the council. Now it seems to me those can take many forms, and I could outline them and then see if people take them up, or propose a soft one to start with. It would seem as though there is concern that council should strongly look to itself to reform in many ways. Now, it seems to me that they have radical ideas maybe about the school, or they have radical ideas about restructuring the business. Do they have radical ideas as to whether, in the light of legal changes in their standing made in 1986 by the government, that it's beneficial for the school to operate in the way that it is still doing? Now, there is, secondary to that, there is the motion of confidence or not in council. As far as I understand it, this meeting could propose a vote of no confidence in council. It would not in itself remove those council members or force them to resign. It may result in resignations of council members. The only use of that is to send a strong signal to council that if they continue to operate in the way that they are, without persuading the school of the benefits of their actions and therefore getting their support, that the only way forward is to then call a special general meeting of the association and propose a vote of no confidence there. And in that way, you could actually remove the council. Well, you couldn't. That takes a long time. The strongest thing surely we can possibly send to council is to say, as strongly as we can, that we see no reason why a 5-year contract should not be offered to Alvin, that it should be, without question, that it is done so, and that it is the feeling of the school, and that if it isn't, if they continue not to operate in that way, then confidence will undoubtedly be lost. I think those are the sort of areas that we can usefully move to a motion. So I would like to start by proposing a motion of confidence in Alvin and urging the council to offer a 5-year contract to him. I don't know if there is to be a discussion, if you want to discuss the wording of that motion before it is seconded or voted on. I don't know, Chair.
I would suggest that we elaborate more on the actual reasons for making this recommendation within the resolution itself. I think if we bear in mind that something of that nature and we try to flesh it out a bit. Can I just, are you wanting to speak on...
Yes, on this motion.
On that? No, but as Secretary of the Association or as Edward? As Edward. I'll come to you in a moment. Can we move, Eunice, I think,
I'm
wanted to say.
backtracking a little bit to offer some
a little light on another reason for the council offering a 3-year contract. Just to offer some more light on possible reasons why the council are offering a 3-year contract. During the JORC meetings, it was suggested by the council that